First, I want to start by saying that San Felipe is in its last month of becoming a municipality. The acting municipal president, Jose Luis Dagnino, was appointed by the ex-governor, Jaime Bonilla, to serve in that role. And until the elections, the official elections for the new mayor or the municipal president, which will be held in 2024. Jose Luis has been doing a good job, I'd actually say better than good, in organizing San Felipe municipal offices. One of the things that we've been helping with is to get the San Felipe tax office information uploaded, which has been a big job. Currently, tax payments can only be made in person at the municipal downtown offices, and these are property taxes. They were taking payments by credit card, but over the phone, but they were getting some cancellations by some of the people that paid by credit card when they got their bill, and they saw that there were some chargebacks. Well, they complained they didn't know what the charge was, and so there were some chargebacks, and so they stopped taking credit card payments over the phone. We're working on getting with them on getting that straightened out. But we encourage all of you that haven't paid taxes so far this year, I'm sure most of you have, that the tax revenue is what San Felipe depends on, as all municipalities do, to stay fiscally sound. The city's waived all the late fees for payments because of getting reorganized, and so the late fees have been waived until the end of November 30th this year. In September, as most of us know, we were hit with Hurricane K. The city did a really good job of getting damage repaired quickly. At the ranch, we suffered damage on our golf course, and we had washed out roads. The course is back up and running, and I know that the HOA is working hard on finishing road repairs. Overall, it wasn't quite as bad as we expected, but which is thank God. With the assistance of Governor Marina and Del Pilar, our new governor, and Jose Luis Dagnino, the San Felipe received 6 new doctors that are on a rotation basis every 3 months. These doctors are specialists in anesthesiology, general and digestive surgery, internal medicine, obstetrics, and pediatrics. The new doctors are working out of Centro de Salud. Last week, we held our 16th annual charity golf tournament, which was a big success. We raised $20,000 for the Universal Golf Foundation, which provides scholarships to the children in San Felipe. I want to thank all the sponsors, players, volunteers, and to you, our owners. And a big thanks goes out to Jesus Velarde and his crew for getting the golf course in such great condition for the tournament. We've had a big improvement in the golf course overall this year. After the COVID shutdown, we saw a lot of people, and it's been in the press, moving to Mexico and to San Felipe. Since last November, we've processed over 58 new company sales and 5 resale homes. There's very little finished product available at the ranch, and we've seen over 17 new home starts this year, 5 remadas and 55 home additions, including pools and other projects in people's houses. Owners are reminded that to work outside and inside or outside your home, mostly outside, including landscape design, must be submitted to the Technical Review Committee or the TRC prior to starting the work. As the developer of El Dorado Ranch, I'm still struggling financially, but we're still working with potential investors to close a deal. We do have a few very interested parties that we've been working with for some time, and we're very hopeful that we'll get something closed soon. We were also working on some interim financing as we try to get these deals done. Doreen and I are very dedicated to getting the ranch back on track financially and get it fiscally stable again. Well, it's stable, but to get it not just stable, but get shovels in the ground and complete stuff we had to complete during the recession. This is stuff we had to stop. It's been a long time coming, I know, for all of us, but we still have the faith that it will get accomplished. I know that in the 2023 budget, this year's budget, which you'll vote on this week, that there's a dues increase of 10% for EDR, 10% for La Ventana, and no increase in the dues for Las Villas. But also, as we all know too, the cost of gas, salaries, and other expenses have dramatically increased during this past year. We need to remember too that San Felipe is the only full-service resort here. El Dorado is the only full-service resort in San Felipe, and with a heated pool and spa, 24 hours of security, tennis, pickleball, bi-weekly movies, full moon mixers, horseshoes, bocce ball, etc., and a full activities department. I want to thank our supervisory committee led by President Dick Peterson and the EDR committee members Ed Jones and Philip Van Rensburg, the La Ventana Del Mar committee members Denise Levin and Hans Walschutz, and the Las Villas committee members Martha Rezak and Gary Lambert. It's good to see you back, Gary. This group works tirelessly every month and meets to make sure that the HOA is operating efficiently and staying on budget in the best interest of the owners. The HOA, and I think all of our opinion, has done an outstanding job at managing the association's responsibilities. I want to thank the HOA staff led by Roberto Islas, Lalo Garcia, and Ricardo Perez. And a big thank you to my developer staff led by Jesus Olmos and my wife Doreen for their administrative assistance and support, and Jeff Williams, who is now heading up our sales staff. And sales have done a good job in the last 6 months. Don't forget that the Shrimp Festival is this weekend on November 5th and 6th downtown on the Malachon. And with that, those are my only comments for right now. I'll open up to questions. Ross.
Should I do one at a time or all the questions all at once? Or?
One at a time would be good.
All right. Let me rank them quickly in my head here. For the range to grow, obviously a lot of sales have to take place, either resales or sales from the developer and so forth. And historically, especially the last couple of years, it's been near nigh impossible to close these type of sales due to the fideicomisos and bank transfers and all this sort of thing. So I'm curious if that situation is under control, or been changed, or how long or how difficult it might be at this point to sell property, you either sell new land or we resell properties and or homes. Has that been improved at all?
Well,
as much as we've tried to put a time, we generally say from the time you start the purchase till the time you get your trust finished, it's about 6 months. Does that vary? Yes, depending on documents produced, the notary's office, the bank you choose. We do in-house have people that do that for us. There are other people out there that do it too. But there's never been a way for us to say it definitely takes this long. Now we have a list of everything, all the steps you need to take. We just can't guarantee the time. But it shouldn't take more than 6 months. Am I right, Jesus? That's about right. Because you have to go to Mexico City to get the permit. That's the first part. So if they're delayed or backlogged in Mexico City, you can't get the permit on time. You can't do anything until you get the permit to come back here and start the process. So what we used to do is we used to fly to Mexico City once a week to process all of our permits in person. I'm not sure we're still doing that. I think we got working with the office too. But Ross can't give you an exact time. But I think what you're talking about is if the trust was with HSBC and then you tried to move it, we had problems with HSBC releasing they didn't have anybody to work with. You had to go all the way to Mexico City, try to get them. I think that part has been resolved. The HSBC, we finally found a person in one of the banks that will process and release the trust to go to another person. That part has been fixed.
Okay, well that's the important part. I think I was unable to.
Yeah, the HSBC was the one that was taking almost 2 years.
Yeah, the rumor mill it's a year or two.
But I think in our case, anybody who had an HSBC trust that sold to another person, we've cleared our books of them, correct? We've got them out of HSBC.
I'm going to sneak my second one in just for purpose, and I'm not sure how much it concerns you personally, but I know it's not the HOA. I don't think so. The BMC clinic, the supposed hospital, what's the progress, if any, on that?
Bondurant, one of the partners, told me recently that they're working with their architect. They do have a set of plans that they're almost complete, and they will come relatively soon, before the end of the year, to present what they're thinking about for the extension of the clinic.
And when you say present it to you or to
No, I think present it in general to the public, to you guys, to the owners.
Thank you.
Yeah. And let me just mention for a minute, HSBC, the reason we changed the trust department was HSBC, this is some years ago, but got, through a big investigation, they got penalized for about $800 million for basically opening accounts where there was money laundering going on. And they found out that through creating a trust and putting a fictitious company together, you could move money in and out of this account. And they were involved heavily into that. And so they decided, the corporate guys decided to close the trust department. So they closed their trust department, and they were our sole trust group. So anyway, we moved to Banco Inmobiliaria Mexico, BIM, and that's why there was, and what they did was HSBC reduced their staff in that department to nothing, to like half a dozen people. And this was all over the country that they were giving people fits with trying to get out of their trust, close the trust. You could still, if you're in HSBC, you can stay there, and they're just not taking any new accounts, and they don't have, a department that's really very efficient or effective. Anyway, we'll move on. Yes, there's another question, yeah.
Closer? Okay. There's been reports in Mexican media, and then there's someone in the U.S. who posts on the San Felipe groups about crime spikes in town, and I'm not going to get into the details, but it's pretty, disturbing, and I'm surprised you didn't mention anything about it. I mean, how's the ranch security, and how does that impact the ranch? I mean, we're outside of town, but all of us got to go into town, and we got to come from the states, and they're saying certain areas on the highways, there's problems. So, any discussion about this with HOA or yourself?
Myself and Ricardo Perez, who's with the HOA in charge of the security department here in El Dorado, attended a meeting with the two generals, the admiral, and military, the federal police, the municipal police, and this was back about 3 months ago, and they all talked about it, and they showed some planning that they had done in their individual departments to work more closely together to get this criminal activity under control, mainly, the assault activity. So shortly after that, a couple of these accidents happened, or murders happened, and I think, that one of the reasons they thought that this was going on, shortly after that meeting, they arrested about 20 people in town. They took them up to Mexicali, and kind of in retaliation for all that, they killed a couple of cops. Okay, and that, when that happened, that kind of accelerated some other activity. The governor said, we're not releasing these people. They're here because they are arrested and to be investigated. And all of this criminal activity is really going on with the corruption going on with mainly, from drugs and from the illegal sale of this poaching, the fish bladder from the Tutuala, which is very, very lucrative trade, illegal trade. So, if you're obviously wrong time, wrong place, it could be, a big concern. But most of it's inside their own groups. And we always advise people, and we do it ourselves. We don't travel on the highways at night. After dark, we don't go out because the highways aren't lit and they're not heavily patrolled. So there have been some changes internally going on, which we're not all clued into, but I know Ricardo Perez stays real close contact, and he talks to the general and the federal police on a very regular basis. So, it's something that we would like to see totally eradicated, but that's kind of a hard, it's certainly something we've requested, and it would help all of Mexico, but, there is an element of it here. Thank God it's not too pervasive, but enough is enough, so. Yeah, we haven't had any incidents here on the ranch that are involved in any of that kind of thing, with the assault and murder activity, thank God. But we haven't had any of that, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, to follow up on that, Pat, I'm just wondering how we as residents can get any reliable stats from either the government or Ricardo Perez or anybody. 'Cause all we do is those of us that are in the chat groups, you hear somebody gets murdered, this or that happens, but rarely do you get anything from the police themselves. Now, okay, they can say, well, it's under investigation, but then it's under investigation and then it's deep six for a long time, so then there's never a follow-up. So we'd like to have a more reliable information source so that we can hear it straight from the source and not have speculation all over the place.
Well, Ricardo would be our best hand at that, whatever he can get. I know that they tell him every once in a while that, this is a little off the record, but I can tell you this much. And it's not a lot, but it's a little something. But it's just very hard information to come by. It's not out in the public at all. During one's chat here.
No, just because I'm on the same groups and I see everything there, I usually don't take it at face value until it's printed in the newspaper, which is the first way you know there's been a crime down here. And it's usually in one of the Mexicali newspapers. Now, if you keep following that stuff, it's not a fast thing, but then you find out the results later of what was prosecuted or what happened. For example, like, somebody will post that they finally got the person in jail for 6 years for robbing them. That comes out in the newspaper too. Unfortunately, as much as we've tried, San Felipe doesn't try and publish all of their stuff. It's only when the newspapers or whatever get the report of it, and then they publish it. But Ricardo, I know Pat keeps throwing your name out over there. Is there a way to try and get statistics on what crimes happen in San Felipe? So let's try and see what he can gather. Maybe it's a monthly thing that this happens, not just, because I know we do it at the ranch. We publicize it, we do it every month and screen any incident report that happens at the ranch. Maybe he can get a generic report from the city that we can maybe include in our newsletter or something. I don't know.
Well, in that regard then, as far as the ranch stats, I haven't seen much in that way as well. For example, there was a robbery break-in, and then I never heard it or published either through our newsletter or anything, so...
Well, the security report is published on the HOA website every month. Now, if the ranch has to take personal action, like we've done it before, we've prosecuted people for stealing wire and that kind of stuff. But we do a security incident report. Do we give you the outcome of that security report? No, because everybody who's involved in it, it's an individual thing that you have to go report, or if something gets broken into, it's not the ranch's responsibility to do that, it's your personal. But he's going to try and get those things would be included. If it's reported to the police, those would be included in a report he's going to try and get you now.
Okay, because I've seen some things that happened, literally, that I know about, but then they weren't in any of the El Dorado reports, so I'm just saying there's...
No, have you looked at do you look at the incident report every month?
Try to.
Okay, I mean, if it's been reported to our security, then it's in the report.
Okay.
Well, I can say too that there are a couple of incidents where we've caught people that have done some stealing and house break-ins here at the ranch, and we have prosecuted them. And I know Ricardo told me every time they get sentenced, they usually call me and tell me what the sentencing is, and I know we have somebody locked up right now for 6 years. So, from our standpoint, we're definitely, if we catch the person, we're prosecuting them. And what we can do is we do in our monthly newsletter, we can start putting a little something in there about security every month. So we'll follow up on that. So, yes, Phil.
I just want to add to. I don't have a question. I just want to add that there's been a lot of tightening up of security at El Dorado. If you look at the access control, it's all been improved. It's much more tighter. The security guards have been trained. The security guard and department showed us, supervisors, everybody, what they do, how they train, their procedures. We've updated some. Ricardo's done a really great job of updating some of those procedures. You'll find it more secure about coming in or leaving the ranch. We haven't had incidents to that degree for months. So, but we do have bad actors. People who want to take advantage of being an owner and they want to let people in without doing the right things. They come and shout at the security guards when they don't have access. So we do have to watch for those as well. So security this year, as far as I'm concerned, has really improved dramatically. They have a lot more control over what's coming in, what's going out, and visitors, unauthorized visitors, and so forth. So I just wanted to add that. And we report that every month in our newsletter.
Yes, sir.
Hey guys, Mike and Cindy, part-time owners since 2007. We were here last year, it's great to be back. We were here last year, met the mayor, and there was discussion about infrastructure improvements and airport potential with the idea of reactivating the commercial airline possibility of flying in and out. Okay, close enough. Any updates? Sorry.
With the airport, I can tell you that there was a little bit of the discussion with since Marina Del Pilar came into office, the new governor, and of course the whole governor's staff changed, and the fellow that's in there, Kurt, who is, he's responsible for the state economic development activity, and we had in a meeting with Curtis, he did mention that they had a great interest in the airport and that they are going to try and move forward and get some activity, commercial activity going there. They've, you know, I know they know that there have been some good discussion in general about San Felipe, and that they know that they need to, you know, kind of move us up in the chart a little bit to get more tourism here and to promote the area. And they kind of see the integral part of that being this international airport status we have, and the fact that we have customs out there. And they know if they have another way to get back and forth, which is economical, that a lot of people would take the flight, and, you know, eventually if they live here, you know, they'll leave a car here and they'll fly back and forth, and et cetera. So I know there's a level of interest, and they've been in office now for about a year, and she's in office for six years, 5 more years. And Kurt's a very good guy. He comes from a background not of politics, but of business. And so he's got, like I say, he's got a good amount of interest in it. So,
Knowing that you retained a private charter, I think it was, years ago, which we were on, any discussions about getting back into that market?
I have one discussion going on with a group that does have regional jets and would love to come back and start doing some service here. They have experience of flying into Mexico, and I've told them as soon as we finish the financing and get back into full-time marketing, get shovels in the ground so people can see we're progressing again, getting things completed, then they're ready, willing, and able to begin a service. So I'm hopeful we can, because I want to really get back and do a fly-and-by program. I'm not, now that I've got those guys that are privately owned, rather than me buying the planes and operating them, I'll definitely use these guys.
You care to share the name?
I really don't think I can, it's confidential, but I do have a letter from them, an intent letter. Actually, I've even got they've given me an idea of some pricing, but, which is reasonable. I can tell you they're out of Southern California, and they, like I said, at one time, when Guaymas had a club bed on the other side, they used to fly every week, and the group that came in the week before, whatever, they would pick them up flying back, and the new group coming in, they would fly them in. So they have permits and everything to fly in and out of Mexico, and they're, you know, I know the guy that's the chairman of the group, and I've been in contact with him. I talk to him at least once a month.
That's great news. I know a lot of us are interested.
Thank you.
Is the airport public or private?
The airport is owned by the state, and it's a you know, fully authorized international airport because it's got customs and, well, yeah, customs and immigration, yeah. They've got immigration personnel out there. So, we'll stay on top of that because it's of great interest to us also because, you know, if you know, we had a real serious, any more serious economic downturn than the world's had, which we all hope doesn't happen, but I'd hate to see us lose if the international status of this, if the customs ever left, because there wasn't any commercial service in here, I'd be very doubtful we'd ever get it back. I mean, there are only 3 international airports in all of Baja, which is Mexicali, Tijuana, and us. The airport over in Ensenada is really military. So we'll watch that closely. Yes, sir.
Wasn't one of the hurdles about getting the airport functional, the fact that San Felipe didn't have a trauma center or full hospital staff?
Well, they're fully operational, and it's mostly used, obviously, if you're coming in from out of country, you gotta land in the first port of entry. And so we're considered a port of entry location. So they get quite a bit of private service that comes in and out of there. We've had commercial service, as most of us know, in the past, and a couple of commercial service personnel groups we've had have had, with overexpansion or whatever, some economic problems themselves, and they've pulled out. So, you know, they're fully capable of of international service. It's just getting a carrier to come in here, and the area needs to be strong enough for the carrier to survive. And I think that's the biggest issue right now.
Thanks for that, Pat. My question was more around hospitalization. So if there's a catastrophe or disaster and having a trauma center in order to service patients.
No, and you're correct there. There is a requirement there for commercial carriers, and I don't know if it, what it's restricted to. I mean, I know that if you're a full certified 121 public airline operator, there is a requirement there that there has to be enough health service and doctor service locally available in case of an accident. And, we're probably on the borderline of meeting that requirement. It's a good point you bring up, because I know that's been a concern also for us.
Thank you. Here.
Steve Long here. 2 comments. One, Seaport Airlines were a carrier to San Felipe, and they had to leave the area, and several other ports they had due to pilot. They trained pilots, and then the pilots would move on to larger airlines, and they're still having that same issue, and there's an airline pilot shortage nationwide. Second comment is possibly apples to oranges, but the average per murder rate in Chicago is 70 per week. So I feel pretty damn safe here.
Well, most of us do for the same reason. I mean, we don't want to get into that discussion and keep us here all day. We'd be ordering some cocktails pretty soon. But no, I mean, I just shake my head when I listen to the news and see some of the stuff going on up there. I mean, I just can't imagine some of these cities. To me, they're not livable anymore. Some of the beautiful cities we had, Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Christopher Lynn. We're new owners here at the ranch. And I've got a question. I don't know if it's for you or it should be directed to the HOA or
it's interesting you bring it up. Because in working with this, the interim mayor, Jose Luis Dagnino, who's also an attorney, and he was the appointed delegado acting mayor here in San Felipe before when we run the municipality of Mexicali. So he's got a fair amount of experience in that area, but we've had a lot of discussion with him. And in Mexico, if you're behind in property taxes, the municipality, this is pretty much unilateral all over the country, has the right to confiscate your property, put up for sale to get your taxes paid. We've just run recently a whole database on this, looking at our owners that are behind in property taxes and behind in HOA fees, and it's pretty much the same group. So we've talked to Jose Luis about it, and he doesn't have a problem with us doing it, and we're fairly close to launching it. It's going to be a letter that comes from me that will tell those owners that are behind in both HOA fees and property taxes of what the right to, on municipal right, is to confiscate legally their land and get their taxes paid, and at the same time that, we'll get the property back on a deal with them to resell it, and as we resell it, collect past due HOA fees and pay them, and the new owners will, start paying regular fees again. But that, you're right, it's a pretty big list, and I know it started, all that fallout started happening when we had the 2007 recession, and but we have all the information we need, and I have even prepared the letters, and we're just, Doreen wants to clarify something for me, but we're about ready to launch a program that we'll kind of oversee ourselves, that will encourage them to get caught up and not lose their investment, and even they have to talk to our collection department and get a payment plan put in place, which we've done for people. Then we'll do that, and we'll start getting these, I'm hoping we'll start recovering a fair amount out of that, but we'll definitely go ahead and move forward. If we don't, we can give them like 30 days, max 45 days to get caught up. And if they don't take some action, we're going to go ahead and take the property back. My feeling about that is if somebody comes and say, hey, my dad passed away and I didn't know about this, and I've learned about it, and I want to keep the property, and we've already taken it back, then what we'll do is say, look, pay the past due property taxes, pay the past due HOA fees, and we'll give you an equivalent lot. And so we'll replace the lot as long as they get caught up in the fees and taxes. We do have a plan for it.
I was going to say, it's possible to a lot of people don't think it's possible that they can actually use the property. So they choose not to pay. It's amazing. We had a house in Kingston Harbor, we chose not to pay. We went to them and said, hey, we're going to borrow on your property. The HOA actually took it back, nothing to do with the predial or the city taxes. We actually took it back. We auctioned it off. It sold for $60,000. The new owner has the house. Now we're collecting the revenues of the HOA.
Right, but it's funny, there's a cost to that, okay?
Oh, I know.
Yeah, so it's, we've tried that, trying to find an attorney that wants to do that in Mexico.
Yeah.
Oh, well, hey, if you, Pat and I also own a condo in Mazatlan, they did the same thing. Attorney made out good. We did a deal with the attorney that you got a percentage of whatever that thing sold for. So there was not a lot of fees, but the percentage was high.
Exactly.
But these were expensive condos. I mean, it's worth doing the but it took about a year and a half to get to that third notice, the fourth notice, you know what I mean, whatever's involved. I would love to be able to talk to somebody who can help us with that.
Yeah, me.
Okay.
I'm
See me afterwards.
Yeah, we've got a couple of demands that actually passed, one in Baja, California, so it should be pretty simple. Not simple,
Yeah,
but
if you give us some information, I've got a card with me, we'll be happy to, and please do, that would be helpful. And we do have about 12 test cases that are going on right now that we have turned over to an attorney for here at El Dorado. And they're in process, and Jesus kind of follows that. But yeah, when we were involved over in Mazatlan, the HOA over there finally put their foot down, and we had somebody that told us that they had escrowed, told the HOA they had escrowed all their payments. The payments were available because of this and this and this. They didn't want to release the money. Well, they finally said, well, then we'll take the couple $100,000 that you know, they owed them a fair amount of money, and we'll take your condo and resell it, and the guy paid.
yeah, the problem is you can generally only go back 5 years on the past due fees. After that, they get wiped right out. So it's better to do it sooner than later, especially like houses that are more like that.
Yeah, see us for a minute afterwards if you will.
Okay.
Hello. Oh, I got a two-part question for Pat. It's going to be a doozy, too. You know, the 2008, so let me first say, when we know the storm trashed all the roads here, and they just got out to my area to do part of the main road in Buena Vista. And I notice all the side roads where there's no houses, where you're going to be selling lots, presumably. They haven't been keeping up with the roads, and each storm that comes by, you got, the roads really get bad. You know, the side roads where there's no houses, which I don't know, there's a lot of roads in some areas. So if you ever do get to where you're going to sell lots, and these people who you're asking to pay dues, if they were ever to come out to look at their lot, they wouldn't be able to drive down that unless they had a high-rise four-wheel drive. So I don't think you're going to get to those side roads, but later in a sales plan, if you're going to sell lots, you've got to be able to have the salesman take the people out there. And secondly, you mentioned 2008. I don't know, you probably follow the markets. The global economy, it looks shaky right now, a lot of problems in the U.S. And, you know, we're hoping it's not going to be another 2008, because if it is, it could be worse. So, and last time, you know, a lot of theories about 2008, you know, about what you did or didn't do, but this time, do you have a plan if things go south about how to, I don't know, get through the whole thing? Because to me, it's not looking good. I mean, the debt markets are bad right now. This is more involved in the 2018. That was just a financial crisis. This is a debt bond crisis where whole governments are in trouble with all the debt they run up. You know, like when you ran up debt at the ranch, you know, it's hard to get out of it, you know, if you get caught. You know. So anyway, these roads, I don't care if they do the roads, because I'd rather not have a bunch of development out where I am. But you know, we got to have the main roads done. And so, what's the plan if this thing goes south again? Thanks.
So the plan, the general plan is to pray. And there's some things that are just out of our control. But the plan is to really get the investor in place. The good, if there is much good news out there, is that there is a lot of private wealth that's in place, and the groups we're talking to have not, you know, the financial institutions are just not a place you can go for this kind of financing. The individual wealth money, there is quite a bit of it, and obviously they're highly affected by the movement in these markets. and as to, you know, their adversity for risk, etc. The couple of groups we're talking to do have the funding in place to be able to do our deal. My plan is to get the deal closed, and if we get it closed, we'll be financially viable enough to be able to sustain whatever we're going to have to sustain if there's another round of this. When we got hit with it the last time, I can tell you it was a mad rush we closed our Colorado office. I sold my planes. We did everything we could do to save our asset base, and pay the debt that we have, because our bank closed their doors, Textron Financial, when that happened in 2008, the first part of 2009, they closed their resort funding department completely, and there were about 150 of us that were clients, and they called all their notes, outstanding debt that they wanted paid out in 18 months and to close the whole department up. So that was kind of a mad rush. This time we're a lot leaner, and we're, I think, financially better off because we did get the overhead reduced substantially, but it's still a touch and go situation, and we do watch, the economy and the markets, not that we're day traders or anything like that, but we do watch it pretty good, and it makes you nervous, all of us, I'm sure. The stock market this year's lost a lot of money again so far, so although it will come back probably relatively soon, hopefully. But it's our whole week and every day is filled with just talking to these investors and trying to get this deal closed. So.
What survives us. So what keeps us going little by little is the sales we are doing. Okay, we did start a social media campaign, which has brought in our buyers. So that helps us meet the week-to-week expenses that we need. It's not by far enough, like in the old days when we were doing quite a bit more, that we can, invest that money or spend that money it covers pretty much our costs. But we're growing it every week. We have a guy that totally is hired just for that, just does social marketing. And
Hi.
so, and he's been doing a great job with it. And I get our sales report, and most of them are from internet links. So it's really a great program. Can it be better? We're doing more and more all the time with it, and doing the boosting and all of that stuff. But we built the website. We try and drive people to it. But it's working. So that's what's getting us by day to day, short of cash out of our own pockets. But
Which there is no law of. Anyway, the other thing that is, really we know, and all of us here know, the difference in the cost of living here compared to America is probably 30% of what it is up on any one of the coastal cities in the United States on the West Coast, all the way to British Columbia. And the fact that there's so much movement, and the fact that COVID did close down only about 50% of their people are back to office space. And so companies have gotten much more accompanied to the fact that people can work remotely and still be reliable and get their work done, etc., makes the population a lot more mobile. And so we just see that as a huge potential market for us, to be able to go out and promote living in a seaside beach town, 120 miles over the border, and a clean, the beach town that is when getting ourselves in the municipality where we get 100% of our tax dollars back, then not just a portion of them. I think if we start seeing some growth here, and we do get something like the international airport open, and we're able to get back into the marketplace and heavily promote like we used to, I think we can see a sales program that will make a lot of sense and put us back in good shape again, and start growing our owner base again, which has been tough for the HOA because, you know, you lose people, you know, just for a variety of reasons, age and health and one thing and another. So, but we need to start growing the owner base more. Doreen's absolutely right, though. The social media program that Carlos that has helped us put together, we're going to expand that whole plan, and we already have been doing that. We're rebuilding our website right now and getting it put together in a much more efficient manner. I think that's all going to help us as we get back into marketing. So,
Hey, thanks, Pat. I hope you get it going again. Good luck. Just don't bring RMAC back.
thanks for reminding me that. That's not in the plan.
I have something for you. This is Al Whale. Have there been any discussions at all with CFE regarding extending electric facilities?
I'm sorry, Al, CFE was going to what?
Have you had any conversations at all with CFE regarding extending electric distribution facilities at the ranch?
No, on this case, remember, you know, we as a developer, we have the responsibility to do the infrastructure. Then when we do the infrastructure according with the technical specifications of CFE, then we deliver, you know, all the obra to them. At that point, you know, they got the obra and they maintain the line and everything. I mean, as Pat mentioned, you know, this is part of the pendings that we have once we close the deal on the investment. Yeah, we're waiting for that. But it's not CFE responsibility.
Question?
This is
my
more
next
of a
argument.
comment back to your, oh, sorry.
Okay, there was a post on El Dorado Ranch by Terry Robb. I'd like to address that real quick. El Dorado Ranch Security. Bottom line, instead of reading this whole thing, if anybody's on it, you can go and read it yourself. But the lady says that Enrique, who most people know from Lynx, was denied access to the ranch. Now maybe that's changed since this post, which is only 2 hours ago. But specifically, he had to show some kind of documentation, it says, to Jesus and talk to, I guess, Ricardo there about, you know, because it was a security issue. So she raised a really good point. Why was Enrique denied access to the ranch here to help people out? I mean, if he's providing a competitive offer for internet, then he should have the right to come on the ranch and he shouldn't have been hassled. So I'd like to hear directly from Jesus and Ricardo what happened in this case.
Well, let me answer that, please. First of all, you know, this guy Enrique was working originally with this other company, Lynx. I think he was an employee there, you know. And now we find out that he has a new company. He has his own company. The problem with him, you know, is that he has no permit. I mean, in order to sell internet, they need to have a concession, federal concession or federal permit, emit by Infetel, but it's the Instituto Federal de Telecomunicaciones. He doesn't have that. That's the reason. I mean, the problem, you know, is that in order to sell you guys, you know, this kind of services, you know, and the HOA is acting, you know, in order to protect the residents. Because, you know, if the authority will find out that he is selling that without the permit, they can come, they can close they can turn down, the antenna or whatever, and you guys are not gonna have any service, and you already pay for that. That's the reason. I mean, the HOA is doing what they're supposed to do in order to protect. There is another 2 companies here that do the same. Edgar Sterling, they do the same, but he has permit. Links, they do the same for years, but they have the permit. We have a file for that. And Edgar Orozco, who is a friend of mine, he's a friend of everybody here, he was working with us. Last week he called me and said, well, I'm a partner with this guy Enrique, and we would like to talk to you about this issue because, and security people in the ranch stopped him, denying the access to the ranch. Then I received it in my office, we have a discussion, and I explained to Enrique that we need to have the order, the file, the copies of the documents, the permits, the hacienda, the tax ID, where he report the taxes and all of that, in order to get the file. And he said, well, in 2 days we will deliver the documentation to you guys, but now I need the access to the ranch. What we did the access to him. Then 1 week later, we don't have anything. That's why we deny the access. And not we, that's what the HOA are doing.
Okay, so what I don't understand, Enrique is not here to defend himself, and I'm not here to defend him as well, but there seems to be some holes in that story. There's a lot of people that have sold stuff on the ranch that don't have permits. Maybe they didn't need them, I don't know. This dives into another rabbit hole, but it just seems to me, I heard that there was pressure from Lynx to keep the guy off the ranch, and maybe that was the call that you got from the Lynx owner. Because Enrique started it. If it weren't for Enrique, there would be no Lynx. So he was an important person. And just because he starts his own company and then is a competitor, well, that's what we would call the American way down here in Mexico. Okay, it's good competition. So I don't know. There seems to be some. Maybe Enrique can can come to terms with you, and maybe we can settle this because he's a good guy and a lot of people like him, and he provides good service.
Well, I don't know about, the situation between him and Lynx, wherever, he was working in the past. The only thing that we ask is for the permits, and he doesn't have the permit. That's what we know. He's illegal selling internet at the ranch. That's what it happened. And that's the reason we stopped him.
So to this date, you have no, who is he supposed to give the permit to? You're the developer.
Indetel.
Huh?
Indetel is the federal authority to provide the permit to him in order to sell internet.
But whose responsibility is it? Isn't it the HOA? You're the developer, so it seeed like it's the HOA.
It's the HOA. The HOA is, but what I explained is that they asked to talk to me, because Edgar is a friend of mine. And Edgar is a partner. Apparently, he put money with him together in order to start this business. But I explained to those guys, we just to comply with the HOA requirements, and you are fine. You can do the work. That's not wrong.
I don't understand
it's a free
why you're the developer, why you would intervene in an HOA issue. It's not your responsibility, it's the HOA, right?
They asked to talk to me. Ricardo Perez was in the office.
But you are the administrator, okay?
I'm the administrator.
Yeah, okay.
And we require that of all vendors, by the way, not just this one. Anybody who works on the ranch has to present all their paperwork.
No, but in this case, it's a federal permit that the guy has to have. So, I just heard about this myself today.
No, I read it before the meeting.
Okay, other questions? Yeah, Ross. Oh.
Two quickies, they're quick. One I'm sort of introducing for someone else who either isn't here or didn't want to ask a question. There's been, in the last couple of years, 2 developments on the mountainside that have come into question. The first one was the development where it was like 6 casitas on one property for rent and so forth. That came up last year, and in my mind, it was answered to satisfaction. But apparently there's a new one now where somebody has 4 lots. They're building pads on them. And they're going to be renting those lots out to RVs. I have no issue with that, but there have been questions about legitimacy and whether this category is categorized as a business or not when you're renting to and from short-term. So I kind of like an explanation from your side as to number one, whether this is or is not within guidelines. And secondly, how broad this situation can be, because it is an interesting business opportunity for some people who have multiple lots in mixed-use areas.
We saw the advertisements, Dick saw the advertisements, we all got together on email, and Roberto and Dick approached him, and we're gonna treat him like a property management company. They'll have to pay the resort fee, they'll have to sign in and get their wristbands. If it's a long-term rental, just like any other rental, then they have to take the lease to HOA and they will get a pass, okay, for the length of the lease. So no, we did. He has an RV park on El Dorado Ranch with all these amenities. So we're just going to treat him like a property management. He has the septic, he has everything put in through TRC, so he's okay. So, but he's willing to cooperate. He's looking mainly for long-term. We consider it more prospects that come to the ranch, to put those motorhomes on those lots is, So, but no, it's all handled. He is working with us, and he's going to be a property management company.
So it's not going to flood our pools and stuff.
No, they're going to.
People say 4 lots, it's going to get crowded again at the pool.
Well, if he rents all 4 to our 4 RVs, then you have a possibility of 8 to 10 people coming down. But they'll have paid the resort fee, and they'll be entitled to use the amenities.
The second one is primarily to Pat, and this is to kind of address the elephant in the room that people are always afraid to bring up, that I know is a universal question out there. And that many people feel the whole hold-up to the financing of the ranch is your insistence of having control. I personally like that idea because I like your vision of the ranch, whereas we don't know the vision of the new investors. But if you can kind of just address that from the point of view knowing that it goes, a lot of people think that's the whole issue, and they're wondering why you're so insistent.
Well, that's not the case. I'm 78 and a half. So, my deal with the potential buyers has been, look, I'll do what I call orderly transition with you. I'll be at least a year and a half, 2 years, to get everything totally, the stuff I had to stop, I want to get all that finished, and that's part of the deal. And then there are 14 different companies involved, turn those companies over totally free and clear, and sell them the stock of the companies, but we'll do it in a very orderly basis, and that's been acceptable by the ones we're talking with. I don't have any insistence. I got 8 kids and 10 grandkids, and believe me, what life I have left, I'm dutiful to owe a little bit of that to them. So my goal, honestly, is in a year and a half, when I hit the big number 80, then I hope I can come and have a retirement party with you guys and, pretty much hang it up. But no, I have no insistence on controlling the ranch or continuing. Everybody that we've dealt with, they've gotten to know a lot of our management team. They're very satisfied with the HOA, with the management team in place. They know that all these, and if you work for us, the only way you can get fired is basically fire yourself by doing something you know you shouldn't have done. which is pretty outrageous, whatever. But, because most of my employees have been with us, 10 years, and in the case of like Jesus was here when I bought the ranch, so he's been here over 30, so 32. So, a lot of our employees are long-term employees, and I care about seeing that their well-being is taken care of, and that, that we do a very orderly transition. So, yeah.
Thanks, Pat.
Yep.
Here.
I want to follow up on the RV lots thing. As far as developing, in our case, maybe a second lot into RV, is there a requirement then still to build a Ramada if you have a RV pad? On a short-term, if you're doing it on a rental basis?
Well, there's design and building guidelines, so I'm not sure what area. So the area that this one in pretty much allows anything. The other areas after that have strict CC&R, so you'd have to check with TRC.
Thank you.
Every area is different, so we can.
Yes, along the access road, there are a number of unfinished condos. Is there any chance of selling them so that they can finish the job and be much more attractive and a much better selling point?
That's one of the things that is at the top of our get done list. And you're exactly right. As soon as we get, I used to spend up to like $5 million a year in just marketing. And but to spend a lot of money to market right now, and you have people come and they say, well, why aren't these condos finished? That's a kind of a, tough thing to, when we had to stop all that was at the same time my bank went out of business, our JV partner, Classic Pacific Homes, out of Riverside County, closed their doors and out of business also. So we lost the builder as well as the bank. But, and so we've got 239 delivered, 61 left to be finished. And so, but that's high on the priority list to get it done. As soon as, and all of the potential buyers, we disclose all of that to them. We have a budget for everything that has to get completed on a, and it's broken out by priority. So that's high in the priority list. All right, guys, well, thank you. Yes, sir.
Speaking of that condo, what about the ones that were damaged by the fires? I know it's probably an insurance-related issue, but do you have any updates on those condos? Because they do affect the neighborhoods.
Yeah, we're still dealing with the insurance company in order to get the payments. Yeah, once we got money, we will restart, the damage repair.
Okay, guys, thank you very much. Have a good weekend.